While a heavy rain pours that night, a young girl named Shang'er cries at the feet of her parents because a wedding against her will has been fixed for her. She begs her parents, especially her father, desperately, with tears-soaked eyes, that she does not want to marry into the Yiwan mansion. She has never met her groom before, and neither does she like the family. Her father is torn between accepting the command of the imperial family to give his daughter out in marriage or granting his daughter's wish. All attempts by the girl's mother to persuade her father to prove abortive. Shang'er sobs into the night, begging her father to look for an alternative. After thinking for a moment, her mother reminds her father that they have another daughter living somewhere else that they can use. They make plans on how to convince people of her identity, so that she will marry into the Yiwan mansion instead of Shang'er, and this makes Shang'er happy that she will not have to be miserable for the rest of her life. Qian Yunxi replaces Shang'er in the marriage, and she is transported to her new home with a convoy of many men and women to aid her. Inside the wagon, she is dressed in a pretty attire and her face is covered so that everyone would not be able to see her, according to tradition. At the mansion, Qian Yunxi is kept in a room to await her husband, and she stays there till she is tired. After waiting for a long time, Qian Yunxi panics from the thoughts of her new responsibility, which came with accepting to get married in Shang'er's place, and she hides under the bed. Not long after, Prince Yuan, her new husband, walks into the room and declares that he has no intentions of treating her as a wife because his rightful wife will always be Nan Qingwen. Without seeing her, he walks outside the room and instructs the maid Surong to relocate Qian Yunxi to the Qingyu Pavilion, a place rumored to be haunted by ghosts. The maid takes her to Qingyu and runs back almost immediately. The pavilion is scattered in ruins and debris, but Qian Yunxi tells herself that she has lived in the mountains so she will survive. She invites her companion, Wristball, from his box to help her, and the ghost-like creature joins her to clean the place. After the work, the dude became hungry and she decided to disguise herself and steal from the kitchen. On her way, Yuan is on duty with his guards and he attempts to catch her as a thief, but she fights and escapes him. Qian Yunxi takes a walk in the palace gardens and laments that marriage is a tortuous thing that no one warned her about. From getting banished to a haunted house to being treated like a thief because she's trying to get food at night, she feels overwhelmed and unhappy since she was all by herself. Riceball appears by her side and blames her for living her perfect life in the mountains to take her sister's place in the terrible place that is now making her an unhappy person. Qian Yunxi is angry at Riceball. He asks her to choose a way that he can make it up to her, and she happily instructs him to push her around on the palace swing. Riceball begins to push her on the swing, and she makes loud noises to herself because of the excitement. One of the princes, Yuzimo, hears the noise from a distance and wonders who could be so bold as to disturb the peace of the palace by using the swing and making loud noises. He decides to investigate the issue and catch the person red-handed, and he slowly makes his way to the place. Yuzimo is both shocked and surprised at the stunning beauty he beholds on the swing, and he approaches her for a conversation. When Qian Yunxi sees him, she quickly comports herself and asks if he would like to join her, but he declines. She steps out of the swing to leave, but he introduces himself by name and asks her to do the same. Qian Yunxi opens her mouth to tell him, but Riceball covers her mouth. Since he is invisible to Yuzimo, he does not know what is happening. Instead, she just declines to give her name, and when he attempts to stop her, she throws him on the ground. Yuzimo reports to his brother that he encountered a new maid and Yiwan promises to send all the new maids to him. Qian Yunxi sings in the palace garden and a horse responds to her song. From there, they become friends and they gist with each other inside the garden. Qian Yunxi names the horse Zoe, and she vows to be its master and keep it from loneliness. She returns to her chamber at night, fully spent from going around with the horse and teaching one of the people in the palace about taming it. Qian Yunxi and Riceball are ambushed by a low-level ghost named Sesame Seed, but they punish it, and it becomes Qian Yunxi's servant and even goes to bring food for them. At night, she has a bad dream about her aunt Kaksu and Queer, and she decides to pay them a visit in the morning with Sesame Seed and Riceball as her companions. Qian Yunxi walks through the market where she sees different beautiful wares on display. Everyone tries to persuade people to buy what they are selling with a promise that it has some magical significance. While Riceball and Sesame Seed think that it is a ploy to sell the goods and Qian Yunxi should not fall for it, she disregards their comments and stops at every stall to buy what they are selling. The first thing she got is a pot that is supposedly magical, which will save her from bad people. She rushes off to the stall and buys the pot. Riceball confronts her about the pot and she tells him that she is buying fate. Just ahead, they spot the seller of a wooden box with the same story and she buys the box too. Riceball fumes about the bad spending and refuses to talk to Qian Yunxi because he feels she should know better, but Qian Yunxi skips ahead happily with her purchased wares. Again, they encounter a woman selling hens who claims that it can pursue and catch a thief, and Qian Yunxi buys one. As they moved on, they discover that a group of men are surrounding something as she thinks that it is something else to buy. But she discovers that it is a beautiful lady that they were all looking at. Just then, a man passes by the lady and pushes her out of the way. Her servant starts to protest, but she discovers that her lady's purse is gone and she begins to shout. Qian Yunxi sends her hen after the thief and her box, which surprisingly starts to work. She tells the distressed lady, Nan Qingwen, and her servant that she will take care of it, and she runs after the thief also. Meanwhile, Yi Wang travels with his entourage by sea, and they discuss their mutual enemy Qian Ocean, who is Shang'er's father. Yu Zimo reminds him that he is married to the man's daughter, but Yi Wang retorts that it is only by their father's wish, and he plans to revenge Qian Ocean's crime against Nan Qingwen's father. Ahead of them, under the bridge, Yi Wang notices a distinct smoke like the one used by the thief at his mansion a few nights ago. He quickly halts his entourage and flies over the bridge to get the person. Unknown to him that it is Qian Yunxi, he holds her by the throat and tells her to confess. Nan Qingwen and her slave arrive at the place, and she explains that Qian Yunxi was trying to save her from a thief. During the conversation, Qian Yunxi escapes and Yi Wang sends people to search for her because her smoke resembles that of his enemies. She proceeds with her journey, while Nan Qingwen proceeds with Yi Wang to the temple to pray for her ill mother. Sesame Seed tells Qian Yunxi of the best exotic eatery around, and the owner gives Qian Yunxi a special treatment because she thinks Qian Yunxi is a handsome master. The owner, Ruyan, gives Qian Yunxi a special inner room to dine in and equally offers her a magical massage. Qian Yunxi enjoys this special treatment even though Rice Ball is angry that she is allowing Ruyan to touch her. One of the servants hurries to the room to tell Ruyan that there is trouble, and she leaves to attend to it. Outside, she sees who it is, and she quickly attends to the error because the guest has begun to make trouble with her attendant. She takes him to an inner room, and he begins to serenade her with the talk of his love for her and how much his feelings are true to her. Ruyan is annoyed by this proclamation of love because she does not like him, and she starts to push him away. He offers to recite poetry to her, but she declines and begins to shout. Qian Yunxi finishes her meal, and she goes in search of Ruyan for the promised massage. She traces the sound of her voice to the inner room and gets into a fight with the young lord because of Ruyan. Qian Yunxi beats the young lord while Ruyan hides in a corner of the room. The young lord tries to fight back, but he is no match for Qian Yunxi's strength. Qian Yunxi beats and throws him on the dining table, and he falls painfully to the ground. His servant throws a knife at Qian Yunxi, but she dodges quickly and decides to lure him out and begins to run. But one of the servant's knives catches Qian Yunxi's hairband and it removes. As she falls forward, Yi Wang and his entourage enter the eatery, and he runs forward to catch her. There, he discovers that she is a woman and insists that she must follow him back for interrogation. Yuzumo tells him that she would like to marry her because she was the one he saw in the palace garden, and they begin to argue. The young lord whom Qian Yunxi fought with turns out to be Zhen Yiking, a member of Yi Wang's family. Yi Wang leaves all the fight behind and leaves the eatery, while Yuzumo takes Qian Yunxi with him, but she refuses to marry him. Meanwhile, Yi Wang starts an interrogation to know if Qian Yunxi is a palace maid, but Sarong tells them that she is not a maid, but she looks like the King Yu's pavilion lady. Yu Zimo is distracted because two servants came to present a meal specially sent by Princess Lin Shuang to him, but he leaves them behind and goes back to Qian Yunxi. In his chamber, he discovers that Qian Yunxi has been kidnapped, but the kidnapper's customized pendant was left behind. The pendant resembles that of Yi Wang, and he picks it up to confront Yi Wang with it. Yi Wang walks purposefully with his guard to Yu Zimo's mansion to see and confront Qian Yunxi about her identity. On his way, he remembers his discussions with his father about Qian Ocean and his distrust for the man. He also recalls all his encounters with Qian Yunxi, and he starts to think that she may be a spy from Qian Ocean. Yu Zimo meets Yi Wang outside his mansion, and the two men accuse each other of being deceitful, so that they each can keep Qian Yunxi to himself. Yu Zimo thinks that Yi Wang is pretending, while Yi Wang thinks that Yu Zimo is lying about a kidnap. But Yu Zimo presents the customized pendant. Yi Wang has his own with him and reveals that there are only two of the pendant, which means that Zhen Yiking is the culprit. Qian Yunxi wakes up to meet herself in restraints in a foreign place, and Zhen Yiking comes to meet her. He tells her that she has been kidnapped because the other lords, Yi Wang and Yu Zimo, are fighting over her, and he will like to be a part of it. He tells Qian Yunxi that she will like to piss Yi Wang off so severely as payback for something he has done. Qian Yunxi begins to ask him questions about his unusual relationship with Qian. He presents a pair of rare earrings to Qian Yunxi, which she recognizes as her mother's own, which was kept with her Aunt Su for her, and wonders how he got it. He tells Qian Yunxi that if she stays with him, the earrings will be hers, but she bites him and struggles out of her binds. Just then, Zhen Yiking's wife angrily comes to drag him from the room. Yu Zimo and Yi Wang arrive to confront Zhen Yiking, but he starts to lie that he does not have Qian Yunxi with him. Yu Zimo throws the pendant to Zhen Yiking and exposes his plan of trying to implicate Yi Wang. He tries to deny it again, and his wife confesses that they have Qian Yunxi. All four of them enter the house, but Qian Yunxi has already escaped with her earrings. At the King Yu pavilion, she prepares to go in search of her Aunt Su, since her father could not protect her from the crown prince, Zhen Yiking. Qian Yunxi arrives at her father's mansion, but she notices that everywhere is filled with bodyguards, including the back entrance, so she is unable to sneak in. Sesame Seed wonders why she will sneak into her father's home, but she explains that she agreed to marry Yi Wang only if Sui and Queer will be treated right, so she cannot just go in. Rice Ball discovers a hole in the fence created by a dog, and they smuggle Qian Yunxi into the hole to enter her father's mansion. After making it through, she sit to catch her breath because she had forced herself through the hole and one of the servants heard her. She sees that it is Queer, and they both secretly go to the room to talk. Queer cries as she recounts all they have been through at the hands of Qian Yunxi's father's wife and her daughter in the house. She reports that Sue was down with malaria and the lady of the house would not treat her. Instead, she was sent out and they heard nothing about her again. Qian Yunxi apologizes for their suffering and promises to get them justice from her father, but she learns that Biting Lai, the leader of the West, will be visiting her father so she cannot see him. The lady of the house violently comes to drag Queer out by the ear to work, and Qian Yunxi vows to see her father and get justice. She tries to introduce herself to the guards so that they will let her see her father, but they disagree because she is unknown to them. She tells Sesame Seed that at the age of 7, her father sent her into the mountains, and when she lived in the mansion, nobody would take care of her except Xu and Queer, so she is used to getting bullied. As she contemplates what to do, she sees a set of identically dressed maids going to serve at the banquet and she gets an idea. She exchanges her clothes with one and joins them to serve. When the guests were ready to be served, the head maid leads the others into the banquet hall to serve the guests. Qian Yunxi goes about her duty diligently, but Biting Lai's eyes follow her everywhere. A younger maid spills soup on the perfectly constructed art made by Fu, which depicts Qian Iotan City and the West City merging. Shang saves the maids from punishment and Biting Lai pleads for them. After serving, Qian Yunxi is angry that her father does not recognize her. Biting Lai seeks her out for a chat, but she ignores him and escapes with Rice Ball and Sesame's help. At Yi Wang's mansion, a guard informs him of the banquet and Qian Yunxi's presence, and he decides to go there. Qian Yunxi is angry that nothing is going her way since her arrival at her father's mansion, as takes a stroll at the back of the house and tries to plan her next moves. As she continues to move, she sees Chang and a maid and runs after them to get their attention, but she collides with Chang and they both fall. Chang's maid helps her to rise and she demands an apology from Qian Yunxi, but Qian Yunxi refuses and tells Chang that since they both bumped into each other, they should leave without a quarrel. Qian Yunxi reveals herself to Chang, but she remains disrespectful and refuses to acknowledge Qian Yunxi as her sister. Qian Yunxi tells her that even if she does not show her respect as her sister, she should show her respect as Lady Yu, but Chang refuses. Rather, she tells Qian Yunxi that she will tell Yuan about Biting Lai's looks at her at the banquet and claim that Qian Yunxi was promiscuous. Qian Yunxi reminds her that Chang thinks he is married to her, so telling him about Biting Lai will only put her in trouble. As they continue to argue, their father and Shang mother enter the place and demand an explanation. Shang runs into her mother's arms and begins to lie about what happened, that she has been bullied. Qian Yunxi tells her father the truth and reveals herself. Her father tells her that her actions will put them in trouble, but she demands treatment to carry Queer along and demand that Sue should be treated. Shang and her mother deny punishing Sue and Queer, and they try to convince Qian Iotan that Qian Yunxi is lying. They begin to abuse Qian Yunxi's mother and she tries to defend her mother, which earns her a punishment from her father, who instructs his guards to flog her till she realizes her mistake. Shang tells the guards to use all their force to beat Qian Yunxi, as she continues to fake tears beside her mother. As the punishment was about to commence, Yuan arrives with his entourage. He tells his guard not to act because he only dropped by to take his lady. The guards at the Qian mansion attempt to announce his presence, but he refuses. Qian Iotan and his family are surprised to see him, and they start to refer to Qian Yunxi as Shang. Qian Yunxi acts along, but she uses the opportunity to force her father to release Queer and find Su. Yuan takes Qian Yunxi with him, and he makes Qian Iotan know before leaving that he heard of the banquet and guests from the west. Yuan gives an order that he should not be disturbed during his work hours, so the guards were given the task to man the doors diligently. Beauty Chu, one of the concubines who proclaims herself as the most favored, tries to go over the guards and see Yuan. The guard begs her not to cause trouble for him because he has been given strict orders not to let anybody disturb Yuan. Yuan comes out to travel on an official assignment and Beauty Chu attempts to follow him, but he refuses and sends her back because he is going on an official assignment. She gets upset and her mates enter her room to cheer her up. They suggest that Qian Yunxi may be the reason Yuan is no longer giving her attention, and she promises to deal with her. Qian Yunxi and Queer play together along the water, and she weaves a flower for Queer's hair. Beauty Chu, while on a walk, decides to spy on Qian Yunxi and the water splashes on her. She tells Qian Yunxi that maids are not supposed to wear flowers and she would punish Queer because Yuan left her in charge. She asks her maid to slap Queer, but Sesame Seed and Rice Ball manipulate the maid's hand and instead Beauty Chu feels the slap on her face. Qian Yunxi tells Beauty Chu that the rules have been fulfilled, so she will take her leave. Yu Wang concludes his official meeting, and he discusses with General Swan how to protect their city from the west. They return to the mansion to meet Beauty Chu's quarrel with Qian Yunxi. Beauty Chu and her maids respectfully greet Yu Wang and General Swan, but Qian Yunxi says nothing to them. Yu Wang asks about what happened, and Beauty Chu and her maids gave an exaggerated report of what transpired with Qian Yunxi and Queer. She tells Yu Wang that Qian Yunxi uses some form of witchcraft around the mansion. Yu Wang instructs one of the maids to give 30 slaps to Queer, and Qian Yunxi jumps in her front to defend her. Yu Wang is annoyed that Qian Yunxi has challenged his authority, and he instructs the guards to lock her in the storeroom for 3 days. Beauty Chu feigns mock humility before Yu Wang, which makes General Swan praise her as a good lady. In the storeroom, Queer begs Qian Yunxi to avoid picking fights, and Sesame Seed and Rice Ball bring them food. They tell her that Yu Wang has a power which makes them weak when he is around them, and she promises to see to it when she is out. Meanwhile, in Yu Wang's chambers, he sends his guard to investigate Qian Yunxi secretly. Qian Yunxi sleeps on the cold floor of the storeroom, and she dreams of her life in the mountains. A strange man presents her with a crown made of flowers for her birthday, which she loves so much. She turns to show her appreciation to the young man, and he hooks her gaze for a moment before telling her that those flowers cannot be found in the mountains where she is living, which means that they are special. This is the moment that Qian Yunxi wakes up as several maids kick the door to the storeroom and enter. Qian Yunxi wonders what was happening, but in her confusion, she begs them not to harm Queer. The head maid tells her that they are only following orders, but they will not harm Queer, and they begin to prepare and dress Qian Yunxi up. She struggles with them till they are done, and she is ushered into a carriage with Yu Wang waiting for her. She continues to question what was happening, but he says nothing. Meanwhile, at another part of the mansion, General San, Princess Lan Shuang, and Yu Zimo are waiting for Yu Wang's arrival. Yu Zimo is upset that Yu Wang is with Qian Yunxi, after promising her to him, but General Shuang reminds him that the emperor arranged the formal marriage between them. Yu Wang arrives, and Lan Shuang hurries over to him for a conversation. Everyone settles at the table for tea, and at first, Lan Shuang thinks that Qian Yunxi is Yu Wang's favorite concubine, but she later learns that Qian Yunxi is supposedly Shang'er, the wife. Qian Yunxi nicely regards Lan Shuang, and everyone enjoyed tea, though Yu Zimo still secretly laments about the formal marriage between Qian Yunxi and Yi Wan. A servant informs Lan Shuang that the banquet is ready, and she tells him to ensure that everyone has fun to the fullest. Qian Yunxi asks what the banquet is about, and for the first time, she learns that she is dressed elegantly and allowed to sit with Yi Wan because it is Lan Shuang's birthday. Quickly, she excuses herself from the table and goes to the flower garden. She finds a low-level ghost who is a flower fairy in the gardens, and she begged her for a crown of flowers. With some of the rarest flowers, the flower fairy makes her crown of flowers, and she joins Yi Wang and his entourage for the banquet. Yi Wang sees Baiting Lai and Qian Yunxi together, and he observes them closely. At the banquet, everyone except Qian Yunxi offers a significant gift to Lan Shuang, but it soon becomes boring to her because she is politically inclined to gain favors from her father. At the end of the gift-giving, Shang-Er's mother publicly challenges Qian Yunxi about not giving a gift to the princess. Earlier, Prime Minister Chen Ayuan and Baiting Lai hold a secret meeting to discuss their strategy to overpower the emperor. Chen Ayuan tells Baiting Lai to prepare the armies, and he would look for a way to convince the king to open the borders. That way, the soldiers would not be on guard. Baiting Lai would attack from outside, and he will attack from inside. Meanwhile, at the banquet, Lady Kun, Shang-Er's mother, is still insisting on a gift for the princess from Qian Yunxi. She tells her that she has lost her manners and every form of morals, which is why she did not bring a gift. Her father equally joins to berate her, and the emperor became interested in the discussion. Qian Yunxi tells them that she has a gift for the princess, which everyone is interested in looking at. Yu Wang tries to come to the rescue of Qian Yunxi, but his grandmother scolds him about his behavior. Lan Shuang thinks that it is no big deal, but everyone else seems to take it personally. Qian Yunxi offers her the wreath of flowers, but her family complains that the gift is too low, which seeks to humiliate the emperor. But Lan Shuang's grandmother recognizes it as a rare flower, which grows once in 300 years, and everyone becomes pleased with the gift. The emperor declares that the banquet should continue, and he asks Baiting Lai if he likes the food. He uses the opportunity to tell the emperor that some of the products he has been served are not fresh, so he could open the borders to let fresh ones in. General Xuan jumps up to refuse, but Chen Ayuan supports Baiting Lai. The emperor begins to see it from their perspective, and he tells them that after the banquet, they will discuss the details at his house. Baiting Lai offers that they will provide strong horses from the west to facilitate the trade process to ensure that their peaceful coexistence continues. Yu Wang comes up and informs his father that he has been training a horse which is of a better breed than the ones trained in the west. He proposes to organize a horse race, and Lan Shuang agrees because it will be fun to watch. Yuan proposes that Qian Yunxi will face Beiding Lai in the competition. Beiding Lai and Qian Yunxi see that their plan is in trouble, but Beiding Lai secretly signals his people, and they use magic to make rain. The rain stops the banquet and the race, and Qian Yunxi suggests that they continue the business meeting at his place. But Qian Yunxi asks for some items from the servants to salvage the rain situation. Yuan understands what she will like to do, but not the others at the banquet. He directs the maids on how to get the other items that she has requested, and she got to work. Qian Yunxi ties the pillars in place with the long red linens that she was provided with, supported by some stones, while everyone looks at her in fascination. Yuan supports her, and together, they jump from one pillar to another to secure the linens. Afterwards, Qian Yunxi adds some mats to the side, which helps to allow the rain to drip to the side. Everyone talks about her and showers her with praises, and the emperor declares that the banquet should continue. Beiding Lai comes to speak with her, and he tells her that he does not know she has the skills in martial arts. Before she can reply, Yuan takes her in his arms to the room to change her wet dress. She protests on their way, but he did not drop her. After changing her dress, she joins the banquet again, and the emperor asks her to demand anything of him. She respectfully tells him that she has nothing to ask, and he tells her to ask whenever she does. After the banquet, her father passes by her side and secretly threatens her with her aunt Xu. Yuan calls to her, and Lanchuan comes to gift Qian Yunxi with her most prized possession as an appreciation for the flower wreath and helping her party continue. Yuan and Qian Yunxi arrive at their carriage to go home, but they meet with Nan Qingwen. She thanks Qian Yunxi for helping her retrieve her pouch, but Yuan tells her that Qian Yunxi's days of cross-dressing are over. Qian Yunxi observes that Nan Qingwen is sick because an evil spirit has possessed her father's pendant, affecting her body. Nan Qingwen tries to brush off Yuan's concern about her health by saying that she is on medication. Qian Yunxi has a way of threatening the illness and extracting the evil spirit from the pendant, but she does not want to destroy the pendant since it is valuable to Nan Qingwen. She tells her that she will suppress the poison and treat her later. On their way home, Yuan tells her to stop pretending because her father is the reason why Nan Qingwen's father is dead. She rebukes Yuan and tells him that she is not her father. Back at home, Yuan returns her to the Qingyu Pavilion where she hangs out with Queer, and later that night, Yuan goes there to eavesdrop on them. Qian Yunxi and Queer are outside the veranda of Qingyu relaxing when one of the maids in the main mansion comes to deliver a message from Yuan. She informs Qian Yunxi that Yuan has ordered her appearance at Changde Hall where he resides. Qian Yunxi wonders why he wants her there and refuses to go, but Riceball begs her for a favor. After much persuasion from Riceball and Queer, Qian Yunxi agrees to go. At Changde Hall, the maid informs her that Yuan has directed that the daily arrangements of the place should be left to her. Qian Yunxi is directed to chop firewood and fill up the water vat in the place, but she refuses. She asks the maid if there is a lack of manpower in the mansion and that the chores are now being assigned to her, but the maid tells her that she is only following the orders of her lord. Qian Yunxi turns to go and confront Yuan, but Queer blocks her and begins to plead passionately that she would rather do the chores on Qian Yunxi's behalf than let her get in trouble with Yuan. Qian Yunxi accepts Queer's suggestion, but they share the chores. Qian Yunxi cuts a branch from a bamboo tree and connects it from the well to the water vat to fill it up directly instead of making long trips from one point to the other, and they began the chore. One of the maids hurries to inform Beauty Chu that she is holding a gossip meeting with other concubines, and she tells them to follow her to watch Qian Yunxi's work. When she sees Qian Yunxi, she began to make jest of her, and she tells Qian Yunxi that she had no right to cut the bamboo because it is under her control. Yuan arrives during the argument and settles it. He orders Qian Yunxi to be in charge of the arrangement in his hall since she does not want to do it, and he vows to punish her if she disobeys. The next day, Qian Yunxi helps him to get ready, and he orders her to clean the courtyard. There she makes friends with the tree spirit, and the flower fairy comes to visit them. The tree spirit awakens the ginkgo tree in the Qingyu Pavilion, which has been dry for many years, and it blossoms. The maids report this strange sight to Beauty Chu, and she vows to expose Qian Yunxi's powers. Meanwhile, Yu Wang's informant comes back with the news that Qian Yunxi has a second daughter who was banished because they said she has bad luck, and he is sent back for more investigation, since it is obvious that Qian Yunxi lied to the royal family. Riceball and Sesame Seeds have observed that whenever Yu Wang is around, they always lose their strength and become faint. Riceball begs Qian Yunxi to look for an object on Yu Wang's body, which is responsible for it. Qian Yunxi searches for the object during her chores. She checks from his living room to the shelves and cupboards but finds nothing. She jumps on his bed and begins to search, and he comes in to meet her at that moment. He whispers to her, asking what she is doing on his bed. Qian Yunxi began to blush, and she tells him that she is arranging the bed. She is saved the embarrassment by a maid who announces that the food is ready. At the table, Yu Wang steals glances at her as she enjoys the food and compliments it, and he began to feed her. Later, while he was reading, Qian Yunxi began her search for the object again. She decides that since it is not anywhere in his house, the object is on his body. She brings tea for him, but she falls with the tea on her way to deliver it. He leaves his book and comes to where she is standing. He kisses Qian Yunxi, but she struggles with his grip. With tears, she ran to her pavilion and sends a message for the next few days that she is sick and unable to visit Changji Hall. During that time, she goes to hunt treasures with Queer and Sesame Seed, and Yi Wang comes along. When she sees him, she falls from the tree, but he saves her. Qian Yunxi recovers from her fall, and she quickly scrambles away from Yi Wang's grip. Inside the house, Yi Wang challenges her for lying to get away from her duty, but she told him that she only just recovered and decided to step out. Yi Wang orders her to dry his body, but she refuses. He traps her with his arms and tries to kiss her again, but she shoves him away and warns him never to come close to her again since they do not like each other. Yi Wang tries to stop her from moving away, but she slaps him and begins to shout. Yi Wang returns to his chamber in anger, and his servant brings him news about the investigation. He confirms that the person promised to him is Shang-Er, and the person he married is the daughter who was banished at a young age and named the Star of Destruction. Yi Wang thanks his servant and promises to deal with the Prime Minister for lying to his superior. He visits Qian Yunxi again and meets Yu Zimo there. Qian Yunxi attempts to go away, but he calls her by her name. Qian Yunxi tries to convince herself that she must have misheard him, and she keeps walking, but Yi Wang repeats that his name is not Shang-Er, and she was the daughter that was seen as a misfortune and abandoned by her own family, and her real name is Qian Yunxi. Yi Wang asks her if it is okay to call her by her real name, but she tries to deny it. She pretends to be angry and tells him that she needs to rest, but Yi Wang did not let her go. Instead, he tells her that he has evidence, and when he can produce it, he will report it to the emperor, his father. Qian Yunxi calls his bluff, and she tells him that he will not report her. Yi Wang strikes a deal with her to visit Changde Hall every night and serve him willingly. Qian Yunxi gets suspicious because she does not think that he will only give her that easy condition, but Yi Wang tells her that the condition is easy enough for both of them to accept. Back at Qingyu Pavilion, Qian Yunxi expresses her anger at being made a servant to Riceball and Queer, but she knows that she must meet the condition to keep her family's secret. The next day, she resumes her duty at Changde Hall, and the maid begs her to clean Yi Wang's priceless vases with care, but she breaks them. Contrary to her wish, Yi Wang does not get angry. She lets the river take his clothes away, but he only asks them to be replaced, and she burns the kitchen. Yi Wang tells the maid that another kitchen can be rebuilt as long as his beloved Qian Yunxi is unhurt. Qian Yunxi becomes frustrated that her actions are not getting to him, but he decides to play her games. One night, he asks her to accompany him to an official dinner, to grind ink for his writings, and she followed him grudgingly. After grinding the ink, she attempts to leave, but he tells her to sit by the corner. Qian Yunxi plays by herself till she falls asleep, and he takes her to bed. After carefully laying her to sleep in his bedroom, he decides to leave, but she pulls him down in her sleep, and he watched her talk in her sleep. In the morning, Qian Yunxi hurriedly leaves the bed in horror after finding out that they slept on the same bed. On her way, she encounters a demon and she confronts him. The demon began to attack her, and Yi Wang receives his first attack on her. Yi Wang puts him to the side to fight the demon, but he sends another spell on Yi Wang, and she runs to intercept it. A magic thumb ring appears on Yi Wang's finger with a powerful glow, and it began to fight off the demon that was attacking them. Soon the demon is unable to fight back, and it hurriedly escapes from the attack of the thumb ring. Yi Wang asks Qian Yunxi, who is clutching him tightly, if she is hurt, and she says no. But the wooden thorn from the demon's attack, which is stuck to his chest, is bleeding, and he begins to cough violently. Yi Wang becomes weak, and he falls to the ground. At the Qingyu Pavilion, Sesame Seed and Riceball see lightning, and they immediately rush to look for Qian Yunxi. They find her on the veranda with Yi Wang, and she begs them to help her carry Yi Wang to his room. In his room, they lay him down, and Qian Yunxi thinks of how to treat his injury. She looks for the best way to remove the thorn, but she finds none. Just then, the ginkgo tree godfather appears, and he helps her to remove the thorn from Yi Wang's chest, leaving behind an ordinary injury. He gives her a special oil prepared by him to treat the injury and make the scar fade. The fairy flower and the tree spirit also appear to support them, and when Yi Wang wakes up, he identifies all of them and asks Qian Yunxi who they were. The ginkgo tree godfather explains that Yi Wang's enchantment has been broken, which is why he now has psychic abilities to see them, and his magic ring appears anytime he is in danger to save him. Qian Yunxi tells him that it was because of her psychic abilities that she was banished to the mountains, and she introduces her spirit friends to him. She takes care of Yi Wang every day during his recovery, cooking his food, feeding and tending to him. Yi Wang likes the attention that Qian Yunxi gives to him, and she especially feels guilty since he got injured because of her. One night, he makes her spend the night in his bedroom, and in the morning, Beauty Chu enters his bedroom where she heard that he was injured even after special instructions from Surong that he has asked not to be disturbed. Qian Yunxi answers the door, and when she sees that it was Beauty Chu, she excuses herself. Yi Wang sends Beauty Chu back and requests for Qian Yunxi, but Surong reports that she went to rest since Beauty Chu offered to take care of him. In her room, Beauty Chu is sad that she no longer has the attention of Yi Wang, and the maid tries to cheer her up. She informs her that the Taoist master whom they have been waiting for is around, and Beauty Chu requests him. Beauty Chu gathers her maids and fellow concubines to storm the Qin pavilion with her. She gets her maids to restrain and hit Queer severally while they await the arrival of the Taoist priest. Beauty Chu expresses her displeasure to the disciple of the Taoist master for his master's lateness. Not long after, the old Taoist master flies into the Qin pavilion and apologizes for his lateness. After performing some rituals, he declares that there are demons in the place and it requires cleansing rituals, so she permitted him. Queer protests and tries to tell him that he must be mistaken, but it only earns her more slaps. Sesame Seed arrives to see that Queer is being held against her will, and he starts to fight them. He slaps the maids holding Queer, and they each fall back. Beauty Chu runs to the Taoist priest for safety, and Sesame Seed began to fight the priest. The priest began to cast a spell to surround the place, which will trap any demon or ghost that tries to come close, and he instructs his servant to fight Sesame Seed. Sesame Seed and the servant fights around the pavilion, while the priest continues the sacrifice. His power soon begins to go down, and he falls weakly in front of Qian Yunxi's door. Meanwhile, Qian Yunxi returns to the pavilion from Changji Manor since Yi Wang is not around to meet the chaos. She carries Sesame Seed in her arm and slaps each maid, restraining Queer. Body Chu began to mouth off at her, but Qian Yunxi slaps her severely for destroying her pavilion before facing the Taoist master. Qian Yunxi begins to destroy the spells that the Taoist master made around her pavilion, and he becomes impressed by her powers. She turns to him and begins to return his spells, but tries her with a spell. Because he is impressed by her, he was willing to take her as his disciple, but she has an attitude. Sarong informs Yi Wang that Kim Yunxi is in distress, and he hurries to Qinju Pavilion with his sword. He sends the Taoist master away and promises to kill any man that comes close to Qian Yunxi again. Beauty Chu tries to start her fake attitude, but he stops and sends her away with her fellow gossips and promises to kill her if she comes close to Qinju again. Qian Yunxi takes Sesame Seed and Queer for treatment from the ginkgo tree grandfather, and he heals them. Yi Wang takes her to his bedroom, and he promises to always protect her. In the morning, he began an arrangement to move into Qinju Pavilion with Qian Yunxi, which leaves her speechless. Meanwhile, the evil demon that attacked them earlier returns back to its master to report that he has found the thumb ring. If you like this recap, do let me know in the comments, and obviously leave your like too. Do not forget to share with your friends and subscribe. Above all, activate your notification bell so you don't miss the next recap when it drops. Until next time, you take care and stay safe.